Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the AEW Dynamite review. This is going to be a review of last night's edition of Dynamite. And I thought Dynamite last night was just a very meh show, in my opinion. Wasn't terrible, but it was just very meh, in my opinion. And last night's Dynamite was the last Dynamite that we're going to get on Friday, because next Saturday there's going to be a Dynamite show. It's going to be on next Saturday on TNT. But last night on Dynamite, we saw the MMA cage fight between Wardlow and Jake Hager. We also saw Darby Allin. He ended up taking on Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky in a 2-on-1 handicap match. Orange Cassidy versed Cezar Bononi. We had Cody Rhodes and Brock Anderson, Arn Anderson's son. He's a new signee to AEW, which was announced last week. And they took on QT Marshall and Aaron Solow. And in the main event, we saw Matt Jackson and the Good Brothers, Gallows and Anderson, versus Eddie Kingston, Penta, Miedo, and Frankie Kazarian. But overall, Dynamite last night, just a very meh show. It was. Just wasn't feeling it last night with Dynamite. But let's jump right into the review. So Dynamite kicked off last night with the MMA cage fight between Wardlow and Jake Hager. Wardlow had Shawn Spears in his corner. Hager, of course, had Jericho. And this played out just like a regular MMA fight, which I'm not a huge MMA guy. I don't watch UFC. But this was done just like an MMA fight where you had 3 5-minute rounds. And the only way to win is by knockout, TKO, or submission. So there was no touching of the gloves before the fight ended up starting. Aubrey Edwards was the referee for this. And this MMA fight was okay for what it was. Didn't love it. I think this should be just a one and done for AEW. I don't want to see them do this regularly. I think this, like I said, this should just be a one and done. But we had both Wardlow and Jake Hager. They were throwing a few shots. Hager ended up punching Wardlow in the face. Ended up clocking Wardlow with a kick to his leg. Hager then went for a takedown, but Wardlow just ended up lifting Hager and threw him away. Hager got back up, delivered a double leg takedown to Wardlow, and he was taunting him. So Hager ended up hitting another takedown. He was pounding on Wardlow. Wardlow ended up doing a shot, which dropped Hager. Hager got back up. He then got stuffed against the cage by Wardlow. Wardlow ended up lifting Hager and dropped him down to the mat. And Wardlow delivered a Superman punch to Hager. And Hager was again on his way as Wardlow ended up chasing him down. And Wardlow ended up running. He tried to go for a flying knee, but Hager moved out of the way. So Hager ended up getting a waist lock that got transitioned into a wrist lock by Wardlow. So Wardlow was just taking full mount and throwing shots at Hager. Wardlow ended up trying to go for the cross arm breaker, but Hager ended up scrambling out of it. into a half mount. And in the end, Hager ended up getting in the head arm triangle to Wardlow. And Hager made Wardlow fade. And pretty much Jake Hager ended up winning the match by TKO. Or the fight by TKO. So, but after that, Hager ended up going to give Wardlow a fist bump. But Shawn Spears ended up running in. He ended up dropping Jake Hager. Jericho jumped in the cage. And he got attacked by Shawn Spears and Wardlow. And then MJF ended up running into the cage. And MJF ended up ripping off Jericho's arm pad. MJF locked in the Fujiwara armbar on Jericho. Jericho ended up tapping out. So then Dean Malenko was in the cage. Dean Malenko ended up shoving MJF off of Jericho. So MJF was like, I don't want to attack you. I don't want to attack you, Dean. But MJF, we all know how MJF is. He says, I don't want to attack you, Dean. But he ended up attacking Dean. He ended up giving Dean Malenko a forearm shot. So the referees end up coming in. They end up helping Dean Malenko. Sammy Guevara then ended up coming into the cage, knocked down Shawn Spears. MJF ended up running out of the cage away from Guevara. But that was that. But Sammy Guevara, he's been on the line on his social media just posting about MJF. He ended up posting the picture of MJF when he was a kid, when he was on the Rosie O'Donnell show, which you could see that video. It is on YouTube here, where MJF made an appearance on the Rosie O'Donnell show when he was a kid. I seen it. I thought it was pretty funny. But overall, this MMA cage fight, like I said, it was okay for what it was, but I don't want to see AEW do this on a regular basis. I think this should just be a one and done thing. And I want to see MMA. I don't want to see MMA on a pro wrestling show. It just doesn't fit. The WWE did that years ago with the Brawl for All. And look at how that turned out. So then we got a very cool, awesome teaser for AEW Rampage, which is debuting in August, which I am looking forward to. Had Kenny Omega in it. So then we went backstage and we saw Frankie Kazarian. Frankie Kazarian ended up saying that he's a man hungry for revenge against the Good Brothers and the Young Bucks, and that he is planning on leaving them in a pile of their own despair. Eddie Kingston, who was also there, ended up saying that their asses are theirs very soon. So Penta ended up throwing up the Cielo Miedo, which Penta was also there. Penta sporting the Joker look, which I really like. So, just a little hype for their match later on in the night. And then we saw Team Taz, minus Brian Cage. So we saw Taz was with Hook, Ricky Starks, and Powerhouse Will Hobbs. Taz ended up saying that there are issues with the group. Taz ended up telling Ricky Starks that there are issues between him and Brian Cage, and that they need to work it out. So Hobbs wasn't happy about being left alone during their match last week. So Taz then ended up challenging Hangman Adam Page to a match against Powerhouse Will Hobbs next week on Dynamite. So there you go. That match is going to be taking place next week. But I stated last week, I said, oh yeah, I think we're going to get the Brian Cage babyface turn this week. But unfortunately, Brian Cage wasn't on the show last night, which I would have assumed that we would have got in Brian Cage on there, and the babyface turn would come full effect last night on Dynamite. But unfortunately, we didn't get that. But it will come. Brian Cage's babyface turn is going to be coming soon. After last week, what we saw, whenever Brian Cage appears on Dynamite again, it's going to be a full babyface turn. Can't wait to see what they're going to do with Brian Cage as a babyface. And then we had Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky versus Darby Allin. 2-on-1 handicap match. This was okay. The match started off with Darby Allin delivering a swing at Ethan Page. Darby Allin ended up landing a springboard arm drag. Page got sent into the corner, and he tags in Scorpio Sky. Scorpio Sky ends up coming in, delivers a drop toe hold to Darby Allin, went for the cover. Allin kicked out at 2. Scorpio Sky ended up sending Darby Allin into the ropes, and Page ended up delivering a knee to Darby Allin's back. Darby Allin ended up punching him, and he goes for a springboard coffin drop. Page ended up catching him, and Scorpio Sky ended up hitting Darby Allin. So Darby Allin was able to land a strike, and then he hit the springboard coffin drop on both Page and Scorpio Sky. So Page had a blind tagged Scorpio Sky. Page delivered a big shoulder tackle to Darby Allin. Darby Allin was then sent flying into the corner from Page. So Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page were in control of the match. Scorpio Sky ended up tagging in, delivered a backbreaker to Darby Allin, and then he brings Page right back in. Page ended up hitting a big backbreaker to Darby Allin. So at the end of the match, we had Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky win, where we had Page ended up trying to go for a superplex to Darby Allin, but Darby Allin ended up fighting it off. And Darby Allin ended up biting Ethan Page. He headbutted him off the top. So Darby Allin ended up getting crushed by Scorpio Sky. Page delivered the Ego's Edge to Darby Allin. He went for the cover. And there you go. Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky ended up winning the match. So, in my opinion, Darby Allin shouldn't have taken that loss last night. But overall, it was an okay match. And then we had Orange Cassidy versus Cezar Bononi. This was just a throwaway match. This match was, in my opinion. Easy win for Orange Cassidy. Orange Cassidy ended up getting lifted off his feet and got sent to the corner by Bononi. Bononi was throwing some shots at Orange Cassidy. He then ends up throwing off Orange Cassidy's jacket, end up launching him out to the floor. So he ended up getting back in the ring, Orange Cassidy, but Orange Cassidy ended up running into a big boot from Bononi. Of course, he had Bononi out there with his wingmen, Peter Avalon, J.D. Drake, and Ryan Nemeth, Dolph Ziggler's brother. So we had Orange Cassidy end up getting back out to the floor, and he ends up getting Ryan Nemeth's jacket on him. So Orange Cassidy ended up leaping off the top rope. He got caught by Bononi, hits the Stun Dog Million. So Orange Cassidy ended up delivering the Orange Punch to Bononi. And there you go. Orange Cassidy ended up winning the match. Overall, this was a throwaway match. Easy win for Orange Cassidy. Nothing special happened in this match. This match should have just been on AEW Dark or Dark Elevation. This did not need to be on Dynamite. Stick Peter Avalon, JD Drake, and Ryan Nemeth and Cezar Bononi on AEW Dark. That's dark material right there. That's AEW Dark material right there. Should not be on Dynamite. Then we had Alex Marvez backstage. Alex Marvez was looking to interview Jungle Boy about his match against Kenny Omega next week on Dynamite. So Marvez was going to ask a question. And we see Kenny Omega and Don Callis showing up on a golf cart. So Omega ended up saying that here he stands without any fancy clothing or a title. So Omega ended up saying that Jungle Boy tarnished his image last week and that he's going to give Jungle Boy a chance to prove his toughness in a street fight. He ended up asking Jungle Boy what he's got. So Jungle Boy ended up asking Omega if he wants to fight him here. He ended up saying that he'd rather beat Kenny Omega next week in the ring. So Kenny Omega ended up letting Jungle Boy get a free first shot. Jungle Boy was getting ready to throw a shot at Omega, and he ends up taking a laptop shot from Michael Nakazawa. Kenny Omega was throwing a few punches at Jungle Boy, but Jungle Boy ends up firing back at Omega. Nakazawa ends up getting him, and he helps Don Callis and Kenny Omega into the cart. Omega ends up booting Michael Nakazawa back to, take out Jungle Boy. And Kenny Omega ends up yelling at Jungle Boy, saying, "I'll get you next week." So Don Callis was just honking the horn of the golf cart, and that was that. But from what I heard, Don Callis, he was fired on Impact this week. Tommy Dreamer ended up firing Don Callis. So Don Callis is no longer with Impact. So I guess he's going to be full-time on AEW with Kenny Omega and the Bucks. And, of course, along with the Good Brothers. So, I mean, if Kenny Omega has to make a appearance on an Impact taping, he's possibly going to have the Good Brothers, maybe the Bucks come on, because Don Callis, he can't be there because he got fired by Tommy Dreamer. So there you go. That was a little piece of news that came out with Don Callis. So then we went backstage and we saw Alex Marvez. He was now talking with Matt Hardy about his feud with Christian Cage. Matt Hardy ended up saying that they had a handshake agreement before the Casino Battle Royale. And that is exactly why he's been going after Christian's ass these past couple of weeks. And of course, Matt Hardy had his goons there, the Hardy family office. So then Christian ended up attacking Matt Hardy, but Hardy's goons end up locking Christian in a caged area. So Matt Hardy ended up telling Christian that he wants to talk. So Matt Hardy then offered Christian a check. It was a check to retire, for Christian to retire and go back home. So Christian ended up telling Matt Hardy to open the door. So Hardy ended up telling Christian that he's going to end his career if he doesn't stop. So that was that. And then we had Cody Rhodes and Brock Anderson versus QT Marshall and Aaron Solow. This is Brock Anderson's in-ring debut on Dynamite. Of course, new signee, which they announced last week on AEW. This was a solid tag team match here. First time I've seen Brock Anderson in the ring. Thought he did a decent job in the ring. We had him and Aaron Solow start the match off. Solow ended up throwing a shot, but Anderson ended up in the wrong corner. Cody ended up coming in to get Anderson back over to the right side of the ring. So we had Brock Anderson delivering a kip up. He flips over Solow, and QT Marshall end up tagging in. QT wanted Cody to get in the ring, but Anderson ended up getting in the shot. And Anderson then tagged in Cody. And QT quickly retreated out of the ring, ended up tagging back in Aaron Solow. So I'm like, QT wanted Cody, but as soon as Cody gets into the ring, oh, here we go. I'm out of here. Aaron Solow, do your thing with Cody. So Cody ended up delivering a shot to Aaron Solow, and then he did a suicide dive out on QT Marshall. Solow ended up dodging an arm drag and hit a double stomp to Cody's back. QT ended up taking back in. Cody was able to fight his way out. He ended up flipping out of a move by QT Marshall. And Cody ended up taking back in Brock Anderson. So Brock Anderson ended up sending Aaron Solow out to the floor. He then hit QT Marshall with some shoulder thrusts in the corner. And then Anderson delivered a stall back body drop. So at the end of the match, we had Aaron Solow ended up trying to go for a move on Brock Anderson, but Anderson ended up reversing it into a jackknife pin. So there you go. Cody Rhodes and Brock Anderson pick up the win. But overall, solid tag team match here. Brock Anderson, he did a decent job here in this match. He was decent in the ring last night. So then we had Jake Roberts. He ended up talking about Lance Archer wanting to strike soon, as Lance Archer is running out of patience. So pretty much that was that. But Lance Archer, ready to strike again soon. So, and then we had Jim Ross. Good old JR. JR ended up sitting down with Andrade El Idolo. And Ross ended up asking Andrade why he chose AEW. He chose AEW because he knows that he has freedom to do anything that he wants to. And that he will be treated much better here than how he was treated in WWE. So Andrade ended up saying that there is a lot of talent and many stars, and that he's a superstar. I mean, look at all the matches that Andrade could have with. He could have a match with Moxley, with Eddie Kingston, maybe somewhere down the line, the Bucks. Maybe he could fight Matt Jackson or Nick Jackson. He has Hobbs, Powerhouse Hobbs. He has Ricky Starks. He has MJF. Hell, a future match with Jericho would be awesome. So, but Andrade ended up saying that he deserves an opportunity for the TNT Championship and the AEW World Championship. He ended up saying that they are his next step. Well, I can see that possibly happening. Miedo versus Andrade for the TNT Championship. I think whoever should be the TNT Championship, the TNT Champion next after Miedo, I think it should be Andrade. But Andrade, and Kenny Omega for the AEW World Championship. We all know that Kenny Omega is going to be holding the World Championship for a very long while. So Kenny Omega is not losing that title just like that. He's going to have a lengthy run with the AEW World Championship. So Jim Ross ended up asking about Vicky Guerrero introducing Andrade. So Andrade ended up saying that they have a great connection because of their respective family histories in pro wrestling. He even mentioned Eddie Guerrero, which that was really awesome of him to put out Eddie's name. So Andrade ended up saying that they have a big surprise coming up. So we'll see what that surprise will be. Well, I'm really happy to see Andrade get back into the ring and see what he could bring to AEW. I mean, this guy is talented. This guy should have been at the top in WWE. They should have used him right. But AEW is going to be treating Andrade very good here. Cannot wait to see what they're going to do with him. Hell, like I said, if he wants to go after the TNT Championship or the AEW World Championship, I could see Andrade becoming the next TNT champion. So I think he'll be the one to possibly defeat Miedo for the TNT champion. So then we had the Dark Order and Hangman and Page. They were backstage. Alex Marvez was there. Marvez ended up asking Hangman and Page about him facing powerhouse Will Hobbs next week on Dynamite. So Page accepted Hobbs' challenge. He ended up saying that he's interested in hanging with his friends and having a cold beer right now. So Marvez ended up mentioning Omega versus Jungle Boy next week. But Hangman and Page ended up bringing up some other stuff. And he ended up mentioning that John Silver will be coming back soon from his shoulder injury. Page also said that Evil Uno put on a performance of a lifetime for his TNT Championship match. So that was that. Hangman and Page hanging out with his buddies, the Dark Order. So we're going to be getting that next week. Page versus Hobbs. That should be a pretty good match there. And then we had Penelope Ford versus Julia Hart. This was a solid women's match here. Match started off with both Penelope Ford and Julia Hart. They were working wrist holds. Penelope Ford ended up taking Hart down with a side headlock. She then delivered a shoulder tackle to Julia Hart. She ended up talking some trash, but ended up taking a drop kick and a running crossbody from Julia Hart. Penelope Ford then headed out to the floor. Julia Hart ended up walking over to her, and she ended up getting tripped up. So Penelope Ford ended up spinning Julia Hart around, smashed Julia Hart in the face. Penelope Ford delivered a flip over the rope and did a double knees into Julia Hart's midsection. Penelope Ford got the win, where Penelope Ford ended up delivering the Indian Deathlock, which made Julia Hart end up tapping out. So there you go. Penelope Ford ended up winning the match. Post-match, Penelope Ford still had the Indian Deathlock locked in on Julia Hart. The Varsity Blondes, Griff Garrison and Brian Pillman Jr., who were out there with Julia Hart, they both ended up getting into the ring, and they demanded the referee to break up the hold that Penelope Ford still had on Julia Hart, the Indian Deathlock. And then Miedo ended up coming out. Miedo was on the mic, and he ended up asking Penelope Ford, "Where is Kip?" We haven't seen Kip Sabian in a long while. So Miedo ended up saying that she's out here and outnumbered, and that's not fair. Miedo ended up talking to the Varsity Blondes about being out here when she's had such a hard time over the last few weeks. So Miedo ends up taking a shot at Griff Garrison. Brian Pillman Jr. ends up leaping off the top rope, and he gets a shot at Miedo. The referees end up running out to break things up, and Penelope Ford was shown looking from the stage, and she ended up heading to the back. And that was pretty much that. So, but overall, it was a solid women's match. So then we went backstage. Tony Schiavone was talking with Britt Baker, the AEW Women's World Champion. Britt Baker was there, of course, along with Rebel. Vicky Guerrero ends up showing up out of nowhere. Vicky Guerrero ended up saying to Britt Baker that she hasn't shown anything except eating cheeseburgers since she won the Women's World Championship. So Vicky Guerrero ended up saying that she wants the title around Nyla Rose and says that they should have a match. So Britt Baker ended up telling Vicky Guerrero to bounce out of here, that they have an interview to do. So Vicky Guerrero ended up saying that she bought Andrade to AEW. And because of that, Tony Khan owes her a favor. So Vicky Guerrero ended up saying that on the June 30th edition of Dynamite, it's going to be her and Nyla Rose versus Britt Baker and Rebel. So Britt Baker and Rebel were just laughing it off, and that was that. But that is a terrible, awful women's tag team match coming up on the June 30th edition. I mean, the two that stand out in that match are Britt Baker and Nyla Rose. Vicky Guerrero, please. Awful. She'll be awful in the ring. Rebel, she sucks. Did you all see the match that she had last month against Hikaru Shida? She's awful. Rebel needs to stay out of the ring. You want to see how awful Rebel is? Like I said, go watch her match with Hikaru Shida from last month. Can't believe this match is going to be taking place on the June 30th edition of Dynamite. That will be my bathroom break there. I don't want to sit through Vicky Guerrero and Rebel being in the same match with Nyla Rose and Britt Baker. Like I said, those are the only two that stand out in that match. Britt Baker and Nyla Rose. So they announced more matches that are going to be on the June 30th edition of Dynamite. So we're going to be seeing Miedo versus Brian Pillman. So this is going to be for the TNT Championship. And MJF versus Sammy Guevara, which finally Sammy Guevara is going to get his hands on MJF. So that's going to be a pretty good match there. So then we had the hype video for FTR and Santana Ortiz. We had FTR, Santana Ortiz. They were talking about scratching their way to the top and that they both think that they are the best teams in the world. FTR ended up saying that they spent money now because they have earned it. And they think that Santana and Ortiz have lost their edge lately. So Santana and Ortiz say that they have carried AEW. So people like FTR have options. So we got that whole video for FTR and Santana and Ortiz. So then we went backstage, and Mark Sterling ended up talking about Jade Cargill having a partnership with a hotel as they expand Jade Cargill's brand. So Mark Sterling ended up reminding everyone that Jade Cargill is currently undefeated. Of course she's undefeated. And he ended up saying that she will continue to appear on all AEW shows to show why she's that bitch. Of course, Jade Cargill, undefeated, impressive. Main event: Penta, Miedo, Frankie, Kazarian, and Eddie Kingston versus the Good Brothers, Doc Gallows, Carl Anderson, and Matt Jackson. This was a trios match, and Don Callis ended up going on commentary for the match. This was a pretty good trios match here. Frank Kazarian and Carl Anderson ended up starting out the match. Kazarian ended up getting an early pin attempt on Carl Anderson. Carl Anderson ended up kicking out at 2. Penta ended up tagging in, ended up taking down Anderson with a sling blade. Eddie Kingston then ended up tagging in. He ended up holding up Matt Jackson as Penta ended up kicking him in the face. Doc Gallows was able to come in. Kingston ended up trying to go for a shoulder tackle, which Gallows didn't move. So Kingston got on the second rope, delivered another shoulder tackle, which brought Gallows down. And everybody was brawling here. So Matt Jackson was working over Eddie Kingston. Eddie Kingston came back and delivered a belly-to-belly suplex to Matt Jackson, which was pretty cool. So Frankie Kazarian ended up delivering a lariat to Matt Jackson, and he power slammed Carl Anderson, delivered a springboard leg lariat, went for the cover. It was a 2 count. Frank Kazarian locked in a crossface chicken wing on Carl Anderson, which Doc Gallows ended up breaking it up. Frank Kazarian then ended up knocking Gallows off the apron, and then he walked right into a spine buster from Anderson. So Penta ended up getting the tag, and he ended up hitting a diving crossbody off the top rope onto Matt Jackson. Penta ended up delivering a big flip down onto Anderson Gallows. He ended up kicking Matt Jackson in the head and a swinging DDT in the ring. Went for the cover, kicked out at 2. At the end of the match, Penta ended up delivering a backstabber to Matt Jackson. We had Nick Jackson end up showing up through the crowd. He ended up spraying Penta in the face with cold spray. And Anderson went up to the top, delivered a neck breaker on Penta, went for the cover. And there you go. Matt Jackson and the Good Brothers ended up winning the match. Overall, this was a good main event. It was enjoyable, in my opinion. But overall, Dynamite last night was just a very meh show, in my opinion. But anyways, that's it for the Dynamite review. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you all later.